An accident, that they were doing it by design. But if you only read the first couple of paragraphs and you were a complete moron, you might believe them. Ed in Texas. Ed, you are on the line, sir.
Man, Jason, you're fired up tonight.
Well, thank you, sir.
I was just calling in to make a couple comments about that Boondocks episode.
Sure.
I thought it was really, really good, and I think satire plays a really important part in all the information and how it bounces back and forth. I was just wondering what you think about the role that humor plays and, the whole INFOWARRIOR scheme.
Well, I think it plays a large part. A lot of people will say that some of these things aren't really a warning, but are preparing you for these type of events. I've got to believe that some of the writers and producers of shows like, well, especially like The Boondocks, but even of The Simpsons and The Family Guy, do show some politically relevant content, do show... I thought that Orwell episode where, again, a guy from the UK consultant firm comes in and makes Springfield the next Big Brother apparatus watched by Ned Flanders was a very good episode. It showed you that we need our individual freedoms and rights and that we don't need to be under a police surveillance state. So I think that plays a really large role when somebody like myself wants to relate my material to somebody. I can say, hey, did you see that episode of The Simpsons? And they can say, yeah, actually, I did see that episode of The Simpsons. And I'll go, well, I actually cover CCTV cameras in my latest film, Invisible Empire. And did you know that mainstream articles from the London Guardian and the Daily Mail actually admit that only 1 in 10,000 crimes is actually solved by a CCTV camera? No, I didn't know that. So I think it's extremely important to pierce the mainstream and get that information out there. And I was a pop culture junkie before I got involved in this stuff, and to some extent still am. So I think it's very important, Ed. I appreciate the phone call. Chris in Florida. Chris, you're on the line.
Yo, my gringo, thanks for giving us all the tools to save hundreds of lives and life itself. You mentioned the Methuselah gene, they're calling it, and it sounds like it's something they want to sell us, that maybe they could offer us this gene by somehow offering the chance to rewrite your own DNA to
or maybe it will come in the form of an electronic chip, Chris. Oh, it might go with a Vera chip or something more advanced than that. I also cover in Invisible Empire, even though it's ever so shortly, brain implants being used today in Salt Lake City, Utah, that are enabling the blind to see again and the deaf to hear. And, of course, even Rush Limbaugh has the brain implant hearing aid where the hearing aid comes off. That was actually covered in Sicko, where a young girl got 2 of those. So to say that those type of technologies don't exist or aren't in the works is just absurd. And like you said, they may try to sell us this Methuselah gene or this vaccination. Again, who doesn't not want to develop cancer? If it really stopped me from getting cancer, I'd line up, I'd roll up my arm, but I don't trust these people, Chris, and who knows what form it will come in. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they've had the invention of the neurophone, I know, for quite a while, and where you can actually just connect 2 electrodes, tune in after a short time, and be able to, even the deaf be able to hear, or if you can hear, it doesn't override your normal hearing. That was invented years ago by Patrick Flanagan, and that's rather suppressed by the NSA until about 10 years ago, I think about 96. But, it comes down to, like, the majority of the people having the DNA that you need to worry about nurturing, and it's not the DNA that you have, it's how you treat it. This study of nutrigenomics, it shows that all humans, regardless of their ethnicity, can develop their natural and dare I say, supernatural capabilities given the correct complex of nutrition and nourishment. And, I want to mention this race issue. I'm all right with the possibility of becoming an ethnic minority as long as these illegal aliens want to consider me an equal, and if they want to earn the mutual respect they deserve. It's just the Mexican and American extremists. I think we need to call our attention to the Fed, and then maybe we wouldn't need to kick out any illegal immigrants.
Well, let me say this about the illegal issue. First of all, they're going to make this into one of the most divisive issues out there with what's going on in Arizona and this headline right here. See, they're not going to make it about the undocumented workers that are actually felons in their own country, that are on social services, that are doing labor for $7 or $8 an hour or under minimum wage and taking U.S. jobs. They're never going to focus on that. Instead, they're going to focus on the horror stories of people trying to be deported who are having success in this country and trying to educate themselves like this young woman. They're going to highlight things like this. Undocumented students arrest called part of civil rights disaster. Jessica Collada took another step towards fighting for her future yesterday. The undocumented student from Mexico, whose case became a lightning rod in the immigration debate, has been released on $2,500 bond just a couple of hours earlier. The 21-year-old student of Kennesaw State University in Georgia surrendered Friday morning to authorities in response to a warrant for arrest issued Wednesday night by the Cobb County Sheriff's Office. So again, they're going to highlight this, a young woman who is trying to better herself, who is trying to become a part of American society, who is trying to get a college degree and actually have a career. They're going to highlight her deportation, and that's really the only reason they're going to try to deport her, so that they can show, oh, look, all these illegal immigrants are good for the country. She's going to college, when in fact she is the exception to the rule, going to a higher educational facility. And look, if we could secure the borders tomorrow, and that's on Mexico and Canada, then I would say yes. Just give everybody here citizenship as long as they can go through a very easy process. I'm not here to kick anybody out, but we have to keep millions from coming in and further decimating this economy, folks. We can't take it. We are already trillions in debt to the globalist bankers. Appreciate the call, Chris. Let's go to John in New York. John, you're on the line.
Hi, I just want to give a big kudos to the globalists for finally electing a good president, Obama. Isn't he like the perfect candidate right now?
I'm not sure about that. Go ahead.
Everything he says is like everyone thinks he's Mohammed.
Well, he did get the he did get the Nobel Peace Prize for deciding to send more troops into Afghanistan and then setting a false timetable to get out of Iraq, which isn't even a real timetable, because that false timetable says at the end of 2011, in the beginning of his election year for president at 2012, we'll only have 50,000 quote-unquote non-combat troops in Iraq, which is totally ludicrous. There's no such thing as a non-combat troop in the Middle East. They all have guns. So yes, it is amazing to me that this president can say, yeah, I'm going to raise taxes on you guys, whether that's through the GIVE Act or the new health care bill. And we're going to get to news about the health care bill and the states suing to say that that's unconstitutional and other people jumping on that. He can say, yes, we are going to send tens of thousands of more troops into Afghanistan. Yes, we will be in Iraq. Yes, we may bomb Iran. And yes, the economy isn't going to come out of this double-dip recession, which is a made-up term. And we'll just applaud and praise him because he's well-spoken and he's a black man. We have a black man as president in this country, so if you actually criticize him, now you're a racist. And that's why I like this Boondocks episode so much, because it pointed out those who have valid criticisms of Obama are being ignored because it's being made into a race issue, John.
Yep, that's correct. But one quick question, though.
Sure.
It's about the Oklahoma bombing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the significance of that? Like 9/11 caused the United States to go to war in Iraq, but what did the Oklahoma bombing do?
Absolutely. Well, it tripled the funding of anti-terror forces, and it was able to pass legislation which was a precursor to the Patriot Act and other legislation that really eviscerated the Constitution and Bill of Rights. So it was able to, number one, get more funding. Number two, pass anti-constitutional legislation. Number three, demonize the right-wing Christian militias out there and the militia movement in general, and create the term domestic homegrown terrorist. And like I said in this episode of the Boondocks, what is Huey Freeman? He is a domestic terrorist. I encourage you to go check out my film, Invisible Empire. I have a small section on the Oklahoma City bombing where we show where it's a fraud and what it was used for. I appreciate the call, John.